I want to share with you a case study that's powerful for two reasons. First of all, because of the disease itself, which is a very tough one, and also because of the timescales involved and how quickly we manage to remove the symptoms of this disease. So I'm going to take you through to the case studies page, and I'm going to go on here called Cheryl. I'm going to show you what it is. So what we've got here is reversal of type 2 diabetes. People will say it's impossible. People say it can't happen. You'll find Facebook groups, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in there saying that they can eat this way and they can manage their symptoms and all this. I'm not interested in managing symptoms. I'm interested in getting rid of these diseases where we can. And type 2 diabetes is one that responds extremely well if you can address the causation. And the causation is diet. That's simple. Type 1 diabetes is different, and that's not what this is about. This is about type 2 diabetes, which is commonly known in some Western countries as adult onset diabetes. Type 2 tends to come about later in life. So you've got Cheryl, she's 35 years of age. She lives in North Carolina. She was 35 at the time I did this anyway. I think this was about 3 years ago. But she certainly looks younger than she did and when I worked with her, and that's a fantastic thing. So Cheryl approached Intelligent Eating. It was 3 days after being diagnosed with the disease. That was diagnosis through her GP, or general practitioner and family doctor, and that was on the back of some blood work and some of the physical symptoms that she'd been experiencing. And she'd read information online about how to try to manage it or reverse it by Googling things like reverse type 2 diabetes and all kinds of pills, potions, all sorts of things up here. And I'm not even going to justify Googling and showing you those sorts of things. It's just not worth my time, quite frankly, or yours to watch it. But anyway, she tried some of these things, but it didn't work. And she's monitoring her blood sugar levels 3-4 times a day. It didn't work. So she approached me, and she'd sent a message. I think it was through the Facebook page, and it just said help. That's all it said. I always remember that. So I replied, said, I'll do my best. What's going on? What's the problem? And she said, I've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Not great Christmas present. Please help. So okay, I said, well, all right. What's your phone number? Let's schedule a time to have a conversation. And she was noticeably upset. She was scared. There's no two ways about it. And I fully empathise. If you're faced with a disease like this and you've read about some of the consequences of this disease, it's not pretty. It really isn't. Type 2 diabetes affects all organ systems because of the change in homeostasis and particular medications that can be prescribed. They're really, really strong medications. And so I said to Sharon, I said, look, there's tons of evidence. I said, we've got people like Neil Barnard, who's president of PCRM. I said, you've come across his work. I said, there's tons of others out there. I said, look, we can do this. How soon do you want to do it? She said, I want to do it straight away. I asked the question because it was coming up to Christmas. And she said, this is not a good Christmas present. I want a better Christmas present. So I said, well, I'm not sure we can do it in 6 days, but I think probably we can do it in 2 weeks. And so we talked about it, and she was a bit skeptical, but anyway, she said, all right, let's do it. Let's get on with it. And I think the great thing about Cheryl is that she was so determined that whatever would happen would have worked. The bad thing that you find when people are very determined is sometimes they can end up spending money on things that are not going to help, and that's where people get off on these things, these snake oil type operations that don't fix the problem. So I said, right, well, we know what's caused the disease, let's address the causation, because you can't start to go on these medications, this metformin, or commonly known as morphatin, because it makes people fart all the time. I said, that's not working, that's going to treat the symptoms. Let's treat the cause. That's what we want to do. So I said, all right, you're slightly skeptical, let me send you some evidence. So we talked about, so I sent some research papers. I said, I want you to do your own research as well, and here's how you're going to do it. So I talked to her about how to actually extrapolate data from a study. It sounds complicated, but it isn't. I said how to verify a study, who's reviewed it, who's paid for it, the standard of evidence in there, and from that she said, okay, well that makes more sense now. I can understand. So she sent me different websites that she'd looked at, and we went through, and I said, well, okay, let's score these websites based on the guidelines that I've given you as to whether they're going to be credible or not. And pretty much all of them were absolute nonsense. They were listed with advertising. When we looked up who'd funded the research, they were people who sat on the boards of pharmaceutical companies and so on and so on. I don't want to sound unprofessional, but the point of this is that if you're going to start doing research, you need to know how to read research. You need to know what is good research and what is not good research. Anyway, the conclusion of this was we made some modifications to the diet, and 28th of December, after many short conversations, we had a long conversation, and Cheryl had some fantastic news that her blood sugar was down to 97 milligrams per decilitre, well within the normal range, So the diabetes had gone, and that's fantastic. And as a side effect of that, the side effect was that she lost 11 pounds, which she said, because I wanted part of the consultation, I said, is there anything else you want to do? She said, well, I'd like to lose some weight. But I always said, let's go for the most serious disease first, and the side effect, she lost 11 pounds as well in 12 days. People say you can lose weight too fast and all this sort of thing. Nonsense. If you're receiving suitable nutrition, your body will adjust its rate of weight change to whatever it feels is sensible. So I wouldn't be concerned about those things. Now, this is where the interesting bit comes in. You see on those websites, they say results are not typical, blah, 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 blah. Now, Cheryl's results are typical. They are. Now, yes, okay, I can put a caveat and disclaimer and say, look, you still need to speak to your doctor. Of course you do. But that's fine. But they are typical when somebody does something about it, and when you catch this disease straight away. It does take longer, and it can take longer sometimes. But within a month, we can pretty much work with anyone to do this. And so it doesn't matter how long somebody's had the actual disease, it doesn't matter. But credit to Cheryl, she took this on and really just took it and went with it and just said, yeah. And because we were attacking the causation, which is almost always dietary in type 2 diabetes, it worked. And that's fantastic. And her health will continue to improve because she's changed her diet, and she now understands how to eat, how to look at research, how to read labels, and so on and so on and so on. Lots of other things that we went through together. If she'd gone on the route, which was to maybe look at some of these other things out there, her health would have eroded over time. And that's not good. Really not good. So really, really positive, this one, because this is showing that in 12 days we can do this. Now, in a lot of countries, you've got to wait that long to even get a prescription or you've got to see a doctor. Cheryl can reverse diabetes in that time. Most other people probably can as well, and that's really, really good. So I put on here, part of a scope here is to present information on how to decide if information that you receive is worth reading. And that's really, really important. So there's a few points to take from that. But that's really nice case study of showing that we can look at these diseases. These are things that people would just say is just a consequence, of getting older, or it's just something that happens to people, or they'll blame it on their genes and these types of things. Nonsense in vast majority of cases, absolute nonsense. People will have built the disease by what they eat, and they've eaten their way into it. They can eat their way out of it, and that's exactly what happens for Cheryl. And it's incredibly empowering. Never met Cheryl, but we've spoken over the phone many times, and we still do keep in touch. And for her, it's given an absolute positive outlook on life. And going forwards, because of this information that she's learned in her mid-30s, she's likely to go on and be incredibly healthy and get to see her daughter grow up and grandchildren and so on. Very, very empowering. If you've got any questions about this or any of the specifics, just get in touch. Feel free to ask me any questions about it, because a lot of people will be skeptical of these types of things because of the way the medical profession approaches it. And I understand that there's a lot of money in the medications used for this, and because the disease tends not to kill people quickly, there's an awful lot of money in it because the medications will be taken for a long period of time. And I don't want to have a dig at the pharmaceutical companies, because they do a lot of good work as well. But type 2 diabetes is a cash machine for most of the major pharmaceutical companies out there, and a lot of healthcare systems, and a lot of the doctors as well, and keeps a lot of pharmacies in business. So we need to be mindful of really who we're looking at here, and the wider picture. But it's wonderful. So it really, really is. And I all credit to Cheryl for this. But thanks for watching this. Really, really appreciate it. Cheers.